Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. Welcome to another video of the behind the scenes things regarding Expedition 33. Now, this one in particular was recommended by a lot of you guys, right? A lot of you guys throughout the series have brought up this video, right? The Clair Obscur Expedition 33's wild 6-year development cycle. Now, that alone, I'm already curious about because we don't really know a whole lot. I mean, I don't. Right? We played through the game, absolute masterpiece. So to see where this kind of started and how it got to where it is now, fascinating. So without further ado, we're just gonna get in it. So buckle up, chill out. We're gonna have a good time. See how they pulled it off.
This is Clair Obscur Expedition 33, just 1 year into development. This footage you're seeing was made with the
Whoa.
sole purpose of trying to find voice actors for the main characters. In fact, the creator of the game would literally be posting this to Reddit in order to find voice actors for their characters. And from that same Reddit post, the creator would also find a lead writer, of which also had no experience in working in games before. In fact, her previous role was an investor at a private equity company. To top it off, the composer for the game's soundtrack had never written a game soundtrack before, and he was brought on after the director of the game found him off of SoundCloud. And to put this into perspective, most AAA games like Fortnite or Call of Duty are backed by hundreds of developers across dozens of different departments. So this begs the question, how did a team that's smaller than the Call of Duty microtransaction department craft the most visually incredible and most impactful RPG we've seen in years?
That's craziness. Absurd. From concept to classic. Wow. Okay, before we get into that's nuts. Right, I'm gonna try not to pause this too much, but there are probably some things that come on, we gotta talk about it. But that's crazy. So I knew the SoundCloud for for the sound designer, right? Lorient Tassan. And I didn't know this is how he went looking for voices. That's so cool. Small beginnings, literally. Wild. Look at that. 5 years ago. What was the
Game would literally find voice
hold on, what is the
actors for the
title of
main
the
characters. In fact, the creator of the game would
ambitious AA game project looking for 3 female and 2 male voices. All right. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Guillaume, and I'm working with a small team of indie devs on an ambitious AA game planned to release on PC, possibly PS4, and Xbox One. We are seasoned game developers who have already worked on AAA titles, who started a passion project a year ago that is turning into a serious title that we want to release. For that, we're preparing a demo and a trailer to interest potential investors or prepare a Kickstarter, and that's where we need you. So they just, for a year, they were just like making it for fun. They were just doing it because they thought it would be cool. And then they were like, actually, hold on. We could actually make this. Let's make this a thing. Well, our demo is almost complete. What we lack are the cutscenes being made right now and some voices behind our characters. The game is a 3D modern take on the JR. I mean, it is, right? Because it's French. JRPG. JRPG genre with Western style characters developed on Unreal Engine 4. Oh, and they pivoted to 5. We have 5 main characters so far who need to be voiced: 2 adult female, 2 adult male, and 1 child female. Cool. So obviously, well, I would imagine the 2 adult female, Ciel Lune, the adult males being Gustav and Verso, and then the child female being Mael. Right? The game will be heavy on narration, so voices are very important to us. Here's a link to the draft of our trailer so far. None of the shots are final, and there's a big black part at the beginning because we are making out cutscenes right now, which is why we need voices and not those terrible robotic voices. But it gives you an idea of what the game will look like. If you're interested, check out this doc with the instructions and script. Ideally, we need people who can do the whole script of the demo for one character. But if you want to just try to the trailer voices, we'll already be happy. Let me know if you're interested and refer to the doc and get the instructions on who the characters are, what lines they have to say, and where to send the audition. I'll conclude my post by saying that if this project takes off, we will probably want to keep working with you for the rest of the project as a member of the team. How this project motivates some of you is we are really dedicated to make this project into something big in a close future. Wild. And hi everyone, and thank you so much to everyone who sent an audition. It is really awesome for us to see such a big motivation for this project. We decided to close auditions this Sunday to gather as many auditions as we can, but still give us enough time to make sure we get time to do our facial expressions afterwards. Edit 2, auditions are closed. Thanks to everyone who sent a take. We'll see the results soon. Cheers. Wow. That's what a it's so humble. It's so just so genuine, you know? It's not like some serious, crazy, like big extravagant project, like, call this number, set up a thing, then we'll have a meeting, we'll run some lines, see what happens. It's just like set it your audition. This is what we're working with. It's kind of the idea. Here's the instructions in the script. Send us what you get. It's so cool. Wow. Look at that. We are really dedicated to make this project into something big in a close future. I wonder. I mean, we'll see.
Literally be
But it's
posting
so
this to Reddit in order to find voice actors for the lead
Guillaume.
writer. Oh, and from that same Reddit post, experience in
Fantastic.
working in games before. Equity company. To top it off, the composer for the game.
And just see like obviously this is all placeholder, but you see the early vision, right? The faceless mask attacks. You got Frey, Mael, and Lune. Right? They got like their health and their I don't know what they would have called it, like maybe like their would it have been mana bar? You get what I mean. They all had overdrive.
Was an investor at a private equity company. To top it off, the composer for the
Cool.
game's soundtrack had never written a game soundtrack before, and he was brought on
Whoa, they gave Mael a scythe? That's neat. Wild.
after the director of the game found him off of Sound. So the action we've
Okay. All right. We're caught up. I just wanted to read. I wanted to read that. Just look at it again before we pressed on, because that's where it all started with that Reddit post. And a passion project made for fun over a year. Yeah.
Expedition 33's journey began in late 2020, but the first concepts actually started 4 years before that. Guillaume Broche, who was the founder of Sandbox Interactive and the director of Expedition 33, was at Ubisoft for roughly 4 years. From 2016 up until 2019, he would work on games like The Division 2 and Ghost Recon Breakpoint. After those two games shipped, he was put in a narrative lead role for a game franchise called Might and Magic. And like many of you right now, I had no idea this game franchise even existed. But apparently, the franchise is a mobile game owned by Ubisoft Shanghai, and Broche was leading the narrative for this franchise. And as you would expect from leading narrative on a mobile game designed to extract as much money as possible from players, Guillaume got bored with the work that he was doing on the team and really felt like there was no impact to what he was doing. And during this time, he had ambitions that went beyond being shoehorned into a mobile gacha game. He knew that a game like Expedition 33 would never be greenlit by Ubisoft, so he quit his job in order to pursue his ambition. Alongside him, Tom Guillerme had the same ambitions as the director, so he would also leave Ubisoft and join the infant team. With the director writing up the narrative and Tom, who had expertise on how Unreal Engine worked, the small grassroots team would begin by exploring Unreal Engine 4, While the director was messing around with Unreal Engine, the original prototype for Clair Obscur was supposed to be related to time, so when he had to save the project on his computer, he had to find a name for the project file. So what would the project be called? Well, the game's related to time, so maybe Hourglass. Well, Sans Fall in an Hourglass. Okay, Sans Fall is the working name of the game, and from that point on, the game's
Wild.
internal
Cool.
working name would be Sandfall, even to this date. With Tom at the helm as co-founder and CTO, and Guillaume as CEO and also a co-founder, they would embark on their expedition to create a brand new world by themselves.
That's so sick. First off, the connection of it being Sandfall and then that end up actually being their studio name is super cool. What was it? Real quick. Might and Magic at Ubisoft. They put it's another example of just Ubisoft like seemingly wasting away the talent that they actually have at their disposal. Because the people that are physically making, so he's like aesthetically, a lot of the games look nice, and you probably have a lot of people that are very passionate about making games. They're probably, there's outliers everywhere, but you're was it you're holding them back, right? You could have great things like Ubisoft could have utilized Guillaume way better, but they didn't. They stuck him on a mobile game, and I love the fact that he got bored and he quit. He was just like, "Yeah, this is it. This is it. I'm not making a difference," which is wild to hear. He's quite literally he's in it for the love of the game, and the current job at Ubisoft wasn't doing that, so he just quit. Right, and then he takes Tom with him, and they go off and start this wild journey. I'm also like looking at all this like finalized like this early footage. It's crazy how parts. I love that Lune was there from the beginning. Lune and Mael. Frey obviously got changed. Or did Frey get changed into Verso? Flying Dragon, Pure White, Ice Coffin, Chill, Ice Requiem, Pierce. I assume this is. I mean, this could be Verso or Kusan. I don't know who it would have turned into. Probably Verso, right? This concept art is crazy good. That's so neat. I love the fact that they all have like the red capes. It's neat. Oh god. So cool. Fucking Renoir. But man. Wow.
Guillaume as CEO and also a co-founder. They would embark on their expedition to create a brand new world by themselves. Now that the studio had been founded, it was time to
So good.
actually build up the game. Since Guillaume wanted this game to have a big focus on narrative, he began reaching out anywhere he could to find people who would be interested in helping the passion project evolve into something a bit more serious. He created this post on the subreddit r/record this for free, looking to cast actors for the main roles of the game, including, of course, Mael. One of the many people who auditioned from this Reddit post was Jennifer Schvedberg Yen. She got one of the leading roles as an actor. However, Once she joined the team, it was pretty clear that her impact would be most noticed in a writer position, so she became lead writer on the game. Despite the growing teams,
Wow.
the co-founders and Jennifer Yen said that they wore many different hats during the game's production. Her involvement would span from story to gameplay to art and all over the project. At this point, the small team continued prototyping and development on the game, but the team started the hunt for a composer at the same time. The co-founders began their hunt for a composer by reaching out to the most popular composers in the industry, like Hans Zimmer, Johnny Paisano, Danny Elfman, and... just kidding. He began his search on SoundCloud. That's where he found Lorian to start. And at this point, Lorian had never worked on a game before, but caught the attention of the co-founders based off the work he's done on his SoundCloud.
He's so
I am
good.
not making this up. The composer of Expedition 33, one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a video game, had never worked on a video game soundtrack before. Oh, and actually, it wasn't SoundCloud. It was even crazier than that. One night, the director went on an obscure gaming forum with like 10 people on it, and he made a post asking if anybody would want to join his team as a composer. And out of sheer luck, Lorian Testard had also randomly found this forum for the first time, just an hour after the post was made. The hunt to expand the team wouldn't end just there. They would also find the studio's art director too. Nicolas Maxon Francome would join the studio during the founders' hunt through online forums. The core development team of 6 developers would continue to work on the prototype for Expedition 33. Driven by a cohesive vision of what they wanted the game to be from the very beginning, the teams spent the majority of 2020 building out the studio first, and then towards the end of the year, the game itself. Everyone.
They quite literally are putting a team together. That's so crazy. What are the odds? That if there's, I don't believe in coincidences, but that's some like crazy, like, I don't even know what do you like, destiny? That shit. Like that you'd post, and then within like 2 hours, the same day, s- th- he finds your post, and then, oh my god, that's great. They're literally piecing this team together. It's so good, man. For a long time, I composed video game music in my free time, writing a new track each week in different styles to refine my skills. At the time, I was a guitar teacher, but once a week, I would compose and upload my work to SoundCloud. After a year, I had about 50 tracks online. One day, I shared one of my compositions on an indie video game forum. That's when Guillaume Brush, game director at Sandfall Interactive, discovered my work. He reached out and asked if I would compose the soundtrack for his game, and the rest is history. It's just that. It's like when you hear it out loud, it sounds so crazy that this is all how it worked. Like, yeah, he's never produced an OST, like an official OST, but the man knows music, and that shines through. Absolutely insane.
One was, and then towards the end of the year, the game itself. Everyone was on the same page here and had the same goals as each other: to make one of the best reimaginings of a classic JRPG that anybody will ever play.
So true. It's
By April
seeing
2021,
the process.
Sandfall moved into a bigger office, and the core development team working on Expedition 33 started to expand. The team went from 6 employees to now more than 15 working on the game, comprising mostly of junior level engineers who didn't really have any experience in making games before, but were just as ambitious as the rest of the studio.
Bro.
The once grassroots passion project was starting to evolve into something bigger. By mid-2021, they were putting the finishing touches on a newer, rebooted demo, something small but was polished enough to attract attention. The original version of Expedition 33 was more Victorian, but these were all assets comprised of the Unreal Engine asset store, just as a quick way to rapidly create a simple prototype. But as the studio's new art director joined, they shifted directions a bit. The demo was meant to serve as a teaser for potential investors or as a foundation for a future Kickstarter campaign. In less than a year since forming the studio, the team began presenting their work to various publishers. Though still in a prototype phase, the demo was impressive, especially given the team's limited size and resources. Towards the end of 2021, they would meet with a brand new publisher, Kepler Interactive. And for those who don't know Kepler Interactive, they are a small indie publisher founded in September of 2021. Kepler Interactive is co-owned by a group of independent game developers, and their primary initiative is to help fund smaller indie games like Sifu, for example, and allow teams to have full creative freedom over their projects. Right off the bat, the publisher and the development teams hit it off and quickly inked a deal to work together in order to ship Expedition 33. Sandfall would use the extra funding rounds by Kepler to shift development from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. Additionally, Kepler would also open the door for more popular voice actors to be brought onto the project. And of course, the small team of 12 people would grow to 22 people working on Expedition 33. Kepler Interactive and Sandfall would announce their partnership together in March of 2023. Additionally, around the same time, Microsoft would also pick up Expedition 33 as a Day 1 Game Pass launch title. At this point, the game had financial backing, guaranteed exposure through Game Pass, successfully switched over to Unreal Engine 5, and greatly expanded their tiny development team, all within a year or two, while also simultaneously working on the actual game. With their new investments coming in, they were also able to upgrade their office with a full motion capture studio, and Kepler Interactive helped pull in a star-studded cast to help voice the main characters. The cast that Kepler was able to pull in is a bit wild. Gustav was played by none other than Charlie Cox, who you may know as Daredevil. Jennifer English played Mayel, who was Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3. Ben Starr played Verso, and he was also in Final Fantasy XVI. Andy Serkis from, well, you know who he is, and the list just goes on, with even more incredible talent. The game was becoming something much bigger than just a great game with excellent gameplay. It was also shaping up to become an incredible narrative experience that arguably could be up there with the best movies of all time. As a side note, on the movie side, Kepler Interactive was also able to secure a live-action film for the franchise too. It's too early to say how good that will be, but it is a fun fact. By the end of 2023, Sandfall Interactive would begin working on a debut trailer for Expedition 33. Since they had a partnership with Microsoft and were going to ship the game Day 1 on Game Pass, they also had a spot in the Xbox Game Showcase in 2024. This is where they chose to reveal their passion project turned masterpiece to the world.
So this is what they showed off. Oh my god.
Sandfall Interactive would reveal the game to the world in June of 2024. And right off the bat, everybody was enthralled by the world that Sandfall had introduced us to. Typically, when a game spends 6 years in development, we would consider it to be stuck in development hell, or a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. However, with Sandfall Interactive and Expedition 33, a 6-year development cycle is actually a pretty remarkable turnaround. I know it sounds a bit crazy to say, but just looking at all of the accomplishments the studio made within the development cycle really helps highlight this point. The first 2 years involved just a couple of folks playing around in Unreal Engine to get a better feel of how the engine worked and creating a rapid prototype of Expedition 33. One that was a bit more Victorian and had utilized free assets from the Unreal marketplace. The next 2 years were spent growing the team, with more talent, bringing in specialized directors, and starting the process of securing a publishing deal that would help bring the game into the limelight. And the final 2 years were spent iterating upon their prototypes and creating a game with a laser-focused vision, a vision that the entire team shared unilaterally. Not only was the team being built up during their 6-year development, but even their publisher was too. The CEO of Sandfall really hit it out of the park when he said something along the lines of, "You can accomplish so much when working with a smaller publisher team." Kepler and Sandfall both had double-digit employees, so the CEOs found it really easy to interface with each other. Alongside the fact that the studio had full creative control, the relationship between the two companies was solely dedicated to crafting the best game they possibly could, with no middlemen trying to squeeze money out of the players. Just 2 months later, the team would put out a 6-minute gameplay reveal. This reveal would showcase all of the work that they had done thus far during development. At this point, the gameplay they showed off looked to be almost identical to the final version we would get a couple months later, so it's safe to say the work that remained at this point was bug fixing and minor UI changes. By the end of 2024, the team had finally finished the core development of the game, and it was time to celebrate. They knew that the game would be releasing next year, and they anxiously waited fans to get their hands on their project. And to no surprise to anybody who's played Expedition 33, they absolutely crushed it. Not only was it a critical success with reviewers, but also gamers. Since release, the game has been in the top 10 most popular games on Steam alone. In just 12 days, the game sold over 2 million copies, and we can only imagine what the actual player count is if you...
That was 12 days? Oh my god, that's crazy. Wow, less than 2 weeks. That's a crazy milestone. That is absurd. That's an incredible 2 million in 12 days. Oh god. I mean, it blew up. This game has had a chokehold for so long since it actually came out, and then word of mouth was huge for this game. Majority of people found out and got into it by hearing other people talking about how good it is. And thing is, I didn't even see any of the reveal trailers. I didn't see any of the gameplay trailers. I think I saw a clip of one of the combats, right? And I think it was in the meadows. So I didn't know virtually anything going into this game when we played it on the channel. And honestly, not seeing the previews, I think was way better. Cause like the areas like Flying Waters, absolutely mind blowing. Because it set the bar for what we were gonna see in this game. And oh my god.
Factor in Game Pass. The story of this game's development is just crazy. The teams absolutely deserved their flowers in creating such a great journey with such a small team. But don't just take it from me. Here's the founder of Larian Studios, the developers of Baldur's Gate 3, predicting the success of Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
So it turns out that not only will I be the one who will know as first which game wins tonight, I actually also know which game is going to win next year, the year after, and the year after. Now, how do I know this? Well, an oracle told me. She said, change is coming. The oracle told me that the game of the year 2025 was going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost. Studio made their game because they wanted to make a game that they wanted to play themselves. They created it because it hadn't been created before. They didn't make it to increase market share. They didn't make it to serve as a brand. They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow. They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun. They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games. It's really that simple, said the Oracle.
Just that simple. Just that simple.
Clair obscur, trouveras-tu, trouveras effet. Clair obscur, pavillon, peinture, trouveras sans air. Clair obscur, trouveras-tu, trouveras effet. Clair obscur, pavillon, peinture, trouveras sans air.
C'est vraiment une expérience qui a été très importante pour moi. J'ai pleuré pendant 2 jours, j'ai rigolé, c'était formidable.
God, that's gotta be insane. Like your first like real industry job, like your first soundtrack is not only, you know, in a game, right? But it's in a game that is then insanely regarded for the music. Like the fact that so many people, even me, I've listened to his soundtrack so many times. Not a single bad track on that thing. It's like 174 tracks that they were able to produce. And it is wild how good they all are. And just knowing that after seeing this, where they all met each other, every single like step of the way is like a fateful encounter. Every single one of them, right? And then honorable mention, I think we need to, right? The one of the last members of the team, right? Our boy Minoko, all right, happiness manager, all right. I feel like we got to shout him out. He was really supporting the team real strong. Now, I 100%. Now, here's the thing. I am a massive advocate for Expedition 33 to win Game of the Year. Not surprising, because I've basically said that since we started, since like a couple episodes into Expedition 33. I was like, this game is special. And then by the end, I was like, this game is insane. It's crazy. And it's not just me. It it's almost universally accepted that this game is really, really good. There are people that are not fans of it, right? Either it's the mechanics of it, or you know, I've seen a lot of contrarians about it, but for the most part, I'm gonna die on that hill. Expedition 33 should win, because I know right now we got a lot of good games this year. This year has been insane for games, right? I haven't played it, but Blueprints I know is huge, and that's incredibly unique. I saw I watched a video by Co Carnage about it, and it's really fascinating. So I could see that definitely being nominated up there as well. And then obviously Silk Song, just for the fact that that game has been anticipated for so long. Hollow Knight was regarded really well, and the hype around Silk Song's release, and then now that it is released, everyone is so into it. That one's obviously going to end up on the nomination list. And then, oh yeah, there's a number of others. What is it? 'Cause I was looking at them earlier. I haven't played it yet because I don't have a second person to play it with. But I want to play Split Fiction so badly. Right? I have it. I bought the game like a while ago, and I need a second person. Right? Death Stranding 2, huge, massive reception. I haven't played the first one or the second one, but I know word of mouth from that one, right? And then obviously the Donkey Kong game that's also been massive for a lot of people. And then we got Hades 2 that just came out recently, and I've heard nothing but insane things about Hades 1, and Hades 2 has seemingly, from a lot of the first impressions, right? And some of the early access stuff was that it's phenomenal. It's an absolute banger of a sequel. Right? Then on top of that, you got Metal Gear Solid Delta, which I gotta play the Metal Gear Solid series again eventually one day. I do. I gotta get those. They seem so intriguing. Right? And then I imagine Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics is gonna be big because I've heard a lot of people are in, you know, really into that. And then I don't know how Silent Hill F is doing. Right? I haven't looked into any of the gameplay or anything for that because I wasn't sure if I wanted us to do it or not. But either way, there's a lot of great games this year. But I just look at it as like Expedition 33 is like an anomaly and it's special. Right? Because like Silksong, it's a passion project. It's made by a group, and obviously like a lot of these other games, right? They're made by teams that care and that really love what they're doing. But it's like the stars aligned for Expedition 33 somehow. You have an incredible voice cast. You have an incredible physical, like the team members that physically did the motion capturing for the characters, right? And then you have the writing team, right? The lead writer, that's wild. That's how right? Voice actor turned lead writer. And then the story is as good as it is. The characters, they're relatable, they're understandable, they have real interactions, real conversations, real thoughts. It feels grounded and believable, right? And you get sucked into the conversation and the world, and that it just keeps going. This I've 100%ed this game, right? And there's gonna be obviously way more new game plus runs in the future because it's really good. But it's a game that I personally wanted to do every single thing in. And I haven't wanted to there are very few games that I've genuinely sat there and be like, I want to do every single thing this game has to offer. Right? Every single thing. Every little bit. Now, I wish there was more. I wish there was so much more to do in Expedition 33, but by the end of it, it was one of those feelings of like, man, it's complete. It's so good. If nothing else ever comes out of Expedition 33 specifically, because we know Clair Obscur, the studio talked about how Clair Obscur is kind of like it's like the franchise, and Expedition 33 is just this specific story within the overall Clair Obscur. Now, what that means, does that mean, Expedition 33 could be, that specific world, and there are others within it. If you know the story, you know kind of where I'm going. Like this, the one world, like there are others, hundreds of others, right? Are there other stories, or is it Clair Obscur, totally different thing, right? Because as far as I know, right, and I tried to look it up because I was like, Clair Obscur, like what is the meaning behind that? And it's I forget the actual, like, the full phrase, right? But it's like Clair Obscura or something like that. It's essentially, it's like an art term for the the contrast between, I mean, in this instance, like dark and light, right? Like you have like black and white, and the stark. So there's like a specific art styles that really emphasize that. Oh my god. I try to make sense of what I'm how do I put it into words? But we don't need to ramble on that. Because I that's gonna spiral off into a whole other conversation for the next 20 minutes. But I mean, either either way, I think the fact that there's such passion behind this and just the sheer love of the game, literally and metaphorically, figuratively, right? But you got the guy that's running the thing, the two guys, right? Guillaume and Tom, they left Ubisoft because they were bored. They were bored. And then they made a studio and put this game together. And then at some point decided, you know what? Let's be serious about this. This could turn into something. And they got passionate about it. Did free auditions for voices. Then the person they picked for the voice, they ended up transitioning to the lead writer, which after playing the game was such a wild decision. And then finding Lorien Tassard on an indie game forum, not SoundCloud, but an indie game forum, and then brought up his SoundCloud when Guillaume posted about it, and then that's how they got him. It's like the Avengers of talent, and just how, no pun intended, but obscure, you know, the talent could be out there. Like, it's out there, and you're gonna find it in some of the most unexpected places, like an indie game forum and Reddit. Wild. I just think it's so crazy. It's so wild. And so, among the fact that I do resonate with the fact that Silk Song could win Game of the Year. A lot of these games deserve the recognition. No doubt. No, there's no less passion in like Silk Song Blueprints and Hades 2 than there is in Expedition 33. But for a game that was turn-based, that had active parry mechanics, right? Two very not very popular things to for the mainstream audience, right? On a franchise that is a new IP from an indie French studio that just kind of showed up out of nowhere. And I think, yeah, that's some real stars aligned stuff. The reviews crazy. Plus, they actually seem like they just enjoyed making this game. You know, they did. I gotta watch this because this I didn't know he was on their podcast. That's so cool. I gotta check that out. But Jennifer, absolute masterful writing. It's just so cool. And then seeing that this was some of the early fights, like the concept was there, and they really drove it home. It's just so cool. And then I know he mentions like, oh, 6 years is a long. That's like, oh, development hell and everything. I I feel like 6 years is not that bad. I feel like that's kind of okay. Now to announce it and then go 6 years, I feel like that's kind of wild. That's a little wild. That's when we get into you know, some territory of like, it's a little too early to announce it. But when you look at what they were doing, it's more like they were really putting it together for like maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Because the first year was just a passion project. They were just doing it for fun. And then they got serious. And then they put the team together while refining it. And then after they really were piecing the team, they were pushing to, touch up the game or get more, specifics. Get, put the models together, get the motion, they the fact that they moved they moved offices, and they were able to get a motion capture studio in their office. The motions that we've seen, some of the clips. We've seen some of the clips. There's obviously more out there, right? But the character movements, the way that they act and they talk in camp and in some of the cutscenes, right? It's very natural, right? Like the micro movements of like the eyes and like the head tilts and the leans, and the fact that they like move their hands sometimes when they talk, and they're not talking with their hands. It's not stiff. I don't know. I could talk about this all day. I really could. I'm such a huge fan of this game. Man, it has fundamentally blown my mind. And obviously there's way more games out there to experience, but this is a gem. This is absolutely beautiful. And so we're gonna go and leave it there. So thank you very so much for watching. Because otherwise this is gonna have to be like a 2-hour video. Because it would. So it's hard for me to not talk about this game. The amount of, if you haven't seen the series, or if you have seen the series, you know exactly what we're talking about, right? But if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's on the channel. I'll link it in the description. I've had a great time. It was super cool, right? So then, what you guys think about this, right? This development cycle, everything about, like the circumstances in general of this, let alone like your thoughts of the game, and then, man, so much. And there's a couple other behind the scenes things that we're gonna check out. So stick around for that. Check it out. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.